In the quiet town of Aguta, surrounded by means of palm trees and crimson dusty roads, lived a younger female named Nnkechi. Her circle of relatives changed into deeply non-secular. Her father, Elder Anao, became a church deacon, and her mom, Mama Ai, was the ladies' chief. Their home changed into full of strict policies. Every day began with prayer and every night time ended with Bible studying. Nnkechi had no freedom to make her own picks. She was the only daughter. She turned into stunning and smart. However, she had a trouble. The person she cherished and wanted to marry became no longer cherished by means of her dad and mom. His call changed into Ojuma, become now not mild. He turned into tough and cussed. His parents have been recognized within the metropolis for continually combating. In the event that they shouted at each other within the morning, they could be giggling together by means of night. If his father served his mom divorce later these days and throws her out of the house, they will be again collectively again by using tomorrow. Peace in no way lasted 24 hours in their house. Humans in Oguta prevented them, and because of that they avoided Ojuma too. However, Nikki failed to care. She preferred Ojuma. He made her experience visible and heard. He turned into formidable, and he failed to cover his feelings. She felt unfastened while she changed into with him. She became drawn to Ojuma like a moth to flame. He was loud, fearless, and fiercely dependable, the alternative of everything she knew at domestic. At some point, she made a formidable move. She brought Ojuma to her house. The sky become clean. The birds were making a song. However, the moment Elder Anne opened the door and saw Ojuma, the wind modified. What's he doing here? He shouted. His voice shook the home windows. That boy from that residence over my useless frame. Nnkechi stood frozen. Ojuma appeared down. Mama Eber tried to calm her husband. Let the boy speak first, she said gently, but Elder Anao shouted once more. A toddler raised in fireplace cannot come up with peace. Ojuma walked away that day. Nnkechi ran after him. Don't pay attention to them, she cried. He became and touched her face. I may not permit pass no longer now. And from that moment, Nnkechi made a silent vow. If the arena turned into an opposition to them, she could still pick him, even though it fee her everything. One morning, Nnkechi walked into the parlor with a letter in her hand. Her eyes were pink like ripe tomatoes. Her voice became tender like morning breeze. Mama, Papa, I got admission, she said. Elder Anna jumped up. Reward the Lord. Mama Eber knelt down and lifted her hands. God has completed it. My daughter turns into a graduate. There was no birthday celebration. Most effective prayers. They didn't have a good deal, however, they gave her the whole thing they might. Her father brought out his savings. Her mother packed rice, beans, and cleaning soap right into a small bag. They held her palms and prayed till their voices broke. Move and make us proud. Her mom whispered, keeping her tight. Do not forget who you're. Her father delivered, placing a Bible in her palms. Nnkechi nodded. Her face changed into calm, but her heart changed into like a drum within the rain. That same nighttime, after the hugs and tears, Nnkechi left the house, but she did not go to any college. She didn't go to any metropolis packed with books and lectures. She ran to Ojuma, and that they each fled the town far away from Oguta. They determined a small town, a city, in which no person knew their names. Ojuma had a chum who gave them one small room with broken partitions and one old bed at the ground. The room turned into warm like pepper soup. In the afternoon, the fan made noise like a crying child. The window had no cotton, simply a bit of wrapper placing on a nail. However, Nnkechi smiled due to the fact she became with him each morning. They woke up hungry, however satisfied. Every night they held hands and promised every other matters they could not manage to pay for. Do not worry, Ojuma would say. I will discover a process. I will buy you everything. Nnkechi might nod. I agree with you. But the truth sat within the corner like a silent traveler. There has been no task there changed into no cash. Ojuma walked the streets each day seeking out paintings. He came domestic with dust on his face and sadness in his eyes. Nikki offered little things, floor nuts, cold water, occasionally even second-hand garments on weekends. However, it was in no way enough. They started consuming once a day now and again. They went to mattress with only water of their stomachs. Still, she stayed due to the fact in her heart she had chosen him. And he or she believed that love could be sufficient. However, love on my own cannot boil yam, and very quickly something else started to develop in Nnkechi's body, something that might alternate the whole thing. It commenced one morning, the sky turned into gray, the room became quiet. Nnkechi rushed outside and knelt via the gutter. She held her stomach and vomited again and again, like her body become rejecting something. It didn't ask for. She wiped her mouth and sat at the bloodless ground. Her arms were shaking deep inner. She knew what it become. She went to a small hospital in town. The nurse smiled after the take a look at and said, "Congratulations." Nnkechi did now not smile, returned. She walked domestic slowly, her slippers dragging in the dust, her heartbeat speedy, just like the drum throughout a village dance. She opened the door and noticed Ojuma lying on the bed, fanning himself. "I am pregnant," she said. Ojuma sat up, his smile disappeared. "Pregnant?" He asked. "How are you sure?" She nodded. He checked out the wall, then at the floor, then at her. He rubbed his head. "No task, no money. How am I able to be a father now?" he said. "This is an excessive amount of..." That night time, while the moon watched via the torn window, Nnkechi turned into fast asleep. When Ojuma packed his garments quietly, one blouse, one trouser, one bag, he checked out her one remaining time and whispered, "I can't do this." Then he left, jogging away by way of morning. His footwear had been gone, his voice changed into long past the bed, became cold. Nnkechi sat within the nook, hugging her knees. She did not cry loudly, her tears just rolled separately like a broken tap. "I used to be warned," she whispered. Her buddies got here later that day. They listened, they sighed. One of them said, "Neglect that boy, he is no longer well worth your tears." Any other one said, "An infant will gradually you down, you are nevertheless young, just get rid of it and flow on." Nnkechi shook her head. "Range, I cannot try this in my circle of relatives, it is taboo." They laughed. "Who will understand? We've completed it earlier than it's nothing." For 2 days they begged her, then on the third day, certainly one of them added a small packet. "Take this, drink it, you will be excellent," she said. Nnkechi checked out the drug, then at her empty room, then at her empty heart. And he took it that night time. Her stomach twisted like a rope. She bled, she cried, she slept at the ground through morning. The child became long gone. She checked out the blood, touched her belly and whispered, "I'm sorry." The room became quiet again. Ojuma became nonetheless gone. However, something inside her had changed, something had died. And something darkish had simply been born after the child left her frame. Nnkechi did now not cry once more. Her eyes dried like cracked ground after her matin. Her buddies wiped clean her face, dressed her up, and gave her, returned her smile. Best this time it become a specific form of smile. They said, "Sufficient of this crying, let's show you how to experience lifestyles." They gave her a purple, "Get dressed." It become quick, too quick, it clung to her like a 2D skin. They painted her lips purple, gave her heels that clicked like horse hooves on cement. That night time they took her to a bar. The vicinity smelled of smoke and perfume. Song crammed the air like sweet poison. Guys laughed loudly. Glasses, clinked eyes stared. A person in a big automobile referred to as her. "You are beautiful," he stated, pressing cash into her palm. "Come sit down with me." She sat, she laughed, she danced. That night time felt effective, the sort of electricity that incorporates attention. She regarded in the mirror and noticed someone else, no longer the church female, now not the crying female, however, a girl who could get what she desired. Soon the rich guys, coated up like goats, ready for water. They called her child Sweetie Princess. They offered her telephones, shoes, clothes. They didn't ask questions, and she, or he, failed to tell lies. Each guy thought he was special. But Nnkechi had found out something. Emotions don't feed you money. Does she performed her sport nicely. And then any other being pregnant came. But she did not panic. She laughed. She called her friend. They delivered the drug. Long past, then any other came, gone once more, then the third, long gone, fourth gone, each one left quietly. No cradle, no call, no tears. Handiest the wrapper she used to easy herself, and the bitter tea she drank after her body have become a graveyard. No one pointed out, but out of doors she danced. She wore gold. She smiled. Extensive human beings stated that woman is dwelling her high-quality existence. But her heart knew the fact. She become now not easy. She became no longer unfastened. She become simply floating like a feather, and not using a wind. Time exceeded, and one day it occurred again. She got pregnant. For the 7th time, however, this time, It refused to leave. Nikki took the capsules. Not anything happened. She took every other nonetheless. The baby stayed like a stubborn yam that refused to boil. She went to every other sanatorium. The nurse frowned and said, "You are 2 days long past this one. You ought to deliver it. Disposing of it could damage your womb." Nnkechi was taken aback to pay attention. This she concept of many stuff. She wasn't prepared to be a mom. But however, here's one stubborn pregnancy that won't pass. And so, for the first time, Nnkechi walked through 9 long months with an infant in her belly. She carried the being pregnant. Her belly grew. Her body modified. Her FT swelled. However, her coronary heart stayed the identical, bloodless and dry. No pleasure, no making a song, no infant purchasing, just silence. She informed no person. She covered her belly with massive clothes and tight wrappers. When humans asked, she laughed it off. It is just weight. She'd say, however, deep inside, she knew this infant was coming. And when the day got here, it was in the night, nobody around, just her and her ache. She screamed into her pillow. She bit her lip. She cried without tears. The infant got here, a boy, tiny fingers, warm pores, and skin, eyes like hers. However, while she looked at him, she felt not anything, no pleasure, no fear, no love, simply emptiness. She sat on the floor, conserving him hours. Exceeded the baby cried softly, like he knew something changed into wrong. Then Nnkechi got here up with a plan. She would take the infant to any man and force it on them. That is because she has been with loads of fellows and couldn't pretty parent out whose infant the infant is. So the morning she took him to the primary guy. "This is your baby," she said. He laughed. "Are you mad? I've never touched you without protection," the second man stated. "Thief escape from right here." The 0.33 known as police by using the third day. Nikki become tired. The infant cried and cried. She looked at him and whispered, "I don't recognize what to do with you." That night she wrapped him in a white material. She walked a long way beyond the shops, past the marketplace, past the park, till she reached a huge black bin via the nook of an antique fence. It changed into full of dirt. Flies danced on top. The air smelled like loss of life. She regarded round. No one changed into watching. Then she lifted the lid. She checked out the child one last time. He blinked. Then growth. She dropped him in, closed the lid, and ran away. She did not appearance again. She failed to say a word. She went home, washed her face, and advised herself, "It's over." And from that day, she in no way referred to it once more. When her pals got here to invite, Nnkechi smiled and lied. He eventually agreed to take the child. She said he got here, returned. He took him. They hugged her. "You notice, we told you guys constantly come round." She nodded, but interior her chest, her coronary heart changed into heavy like a bag of moist sand. She wiped clean her face, wore makeup, placed on her heels. She accompanied them to the bar that night time. The song played loud, the lighting fixtures blinked. Guys offered drinks, laughter crammed the room. She danced. She laughed, however internal. It became quiet, very quiet. The laughter failed to attain her bones. The liquids didn't sweet her tongue. The compliments did not melt her like earlier. Then she smiled, however. It was the type of smile that doesn't touch the eyes. Her buddies failed to be aware. They stored, announcing, "Nnkechi, you appearance hotter than ever." She would nod, but each night time while she removed her get dressed and wiped her makeup, she sat alone at the mattress and stared on the ceiling. She heard an infant cry in her mind, even if there was no toddler around. Sometimes she would sit and experience like a person was looking her like two small eyes from a darkish bin was nevertheless following her. She shook her head and whispered, "Stop it, it is over." But it failed to stop. It stayed like a shadow in the back of her laughter, like a stain underneath easy fabric. The days moved. She went lower back to the life she knew, sugar daddies, bars, speedy money. But it did not flavor candy anymore. It felt like chewing dry leaf. She began getting worn out, very worn out now, not the sort of worn out sleep. May want to restore the type of worn out that came from the soul. And at some point, as she sat on a plastic chair watching different women chuckle and dance, she whispered to herself, "Is that this all theirs?" But no person responded. Handiest silence sat beside her. Nnkechi turned into tired of lies, bored with bars, tired of guys who in no way stayed beyond morning. She instructed herself, maybe it's time to be regular. That's while she met Nnkechi. He wasn't rich. He didn't force a massive automobile. However, he had something exclusive. Peace. Emma was a teacher. His voice turned into gentle like wind through cassava leaves. He spoke lightly, walked slowly, smiled without problems. He didn't study her body, he looked at her eyes. "Marry me," he said one night. She blinked. "Me?" "Sure," he said. "You're the kind of girl I've been praying for." Her coronary heart skipped. No guy had ever prayed for her earlier than so that they were given married in a small church. Only a few human beings, a white dress, a touch rice, no noise, no lies for the primary time in years. Nnkechi felt like a wife. She cooked, she wiped clean, she waited at the door. Whilst he came domestic at night, he touched her lightly, held her like she might smash. She thought maybe simply perhaps her past had stayed in the past. But after 365 days, no toddler came. 2 years nonetheless. Empty human beings started out whispering, "Is she a girl or a log of timber? She looks wholesome." However, nothing is shifting internal. Her Emma's mom came to visit sooner or later. She stayed for every week. At the 7th night time, she advised Emma, "That girl, she's hiding something." Nnkechi failed to say something, but his eyes commenced converting. His smile grew thinner. He got here domestic later, slept with his lower back. Became in case she observed. She tried cooking his favored soup, or his fine wrapper, sat beside him, and rubbed his feet, but his eyes had been a ways. Then one morning he folded his garments into a bag slowly, smartly. She stood with the aid of the door, preserving her wrapper tight. "You are leaving?" she asked. He nodded. "I can't wait forever." She stated, "Not anything." He looked at her one ultimate time and whispered, "I'm sorry." Then he walked out, much like that some other domestic long past. Every other heart broke, and Nnkechi stood on my own once more, with no baby, no husband, no solutions, simply silence. After Emma left, Nikki stated to herself, "Maybe love isn't for me, maybe I simply want consolation." Then she met Nnkechi. He became tall, easy, and wealthy. His perfume arrived before him. His laughter shook the ground like thunder. And while he smiled, "You'll think life had no troubles." He noticed her at a marriage and stated, "You are too beautiful to take a seat alone." Nnkechi smiled, that vintage smile, the one she had buried. Rose once more. Nnkechi didn't waste time. The following week, he delivered items: footwear, perfume, phones, gold. He didn't ask her too many questions. He simply stated, "I need you, I'll cope with you." She stated yes. They'd a large wedding, white tents, loud music. Humans got here from a long way. Her get dressed shined like morning. She appeared like a queen. But after the wedding ceremony, the house became bloodless. Days turned to months. No baby. She went to the clinic. The health practitioner stated everything was quality, but not anything became going on internal her. She commenced boiling herbs, drinking sour roots, fasting, crying in the bathroom, kneeling with the aid of the bed in the dead of night. Nothing then. Nnkechi's mother came to visit. She looked Nnkechi up and down. Day after today, she known as to the kitchen. That woman is hiding something. She should have tied her womb. Maybe she has eaten. Atypical matters. The day after, she shouted across the house, "What form of girl cannot bring a baby? You need to bury our family name." Nnkechi began changing. His voice became sharp, his fingers to his eyes turned bloodless. "Inform me the reality," he said one night time. "Have you removed kids before?" Then Nnkechi checked out him, her lips shaking. "No." She lied. He hissed, "Then you definitely should be cursed." And that changed into the beginning of the end. One morning, Nnkechi packed her luggage himself. "I do not want you." Once more he said, "Go away." She did not argue. She picked her bag, walked out the gate. The safety shield watched her pass. The wind carried dust at the back of her. Another home, misplaced. Every other call erased. Some other door closed. And nevertheless her belly changed into empty after Nnkechi chased her out. Nnkechi failed to cry. She simply walked. Dust covered her feet. Her eyes have been clean. Her frame moved. However, her spirit sat someplace a long way in the back of. She went again to her small room, the only with the noisy fan and the damaged chair. She cleaned it, lit a candle, and sat in the darkish. That Sunday, she wore white and went to church. She didn't sing. She didn't dance. She simply knelt and stared on the altar. After Carrier, the pastor known as her, "My daughter," he said, "the Lord is showing me something." She checked out him. "There is something you've buried, something deep, something you must confess." She compelled a grin. "Me, I've finished." "Not anything, sir." The pastor's eyes narrowed. "Don't mislead God. Move and communicate the reality, or it'll hold chasing you." Nnkechi stood up slowly. "I do not know what you are speaking approximately," she whispered. She walked away. Before he should speak once more, returned in her room. She sat at the bed. She concept about the child in the bin. She concept approximately the 6 others. She never named she concept about Ojuma approximately Uchai. However, she said nothing. She didn't write. She failed to pray. She didn't tell her heart. Became locked like a metal gate, she advised herself. It is too overdue, no person will recognize. So she wore her pain like makeup, covered her past with fragrance, sat within the front row at church, and clapped like all and sundry. Else, however, every time the pastor said, "Mercy is waiting." Her chest might tighten, she could swallow tough and foe due to the fact her disgrace became louder than her voice. Or even although the truth saved knocking, Nnkechi saved the door. Shut then came Kojo, tall like a palm tree, pores and skin clean like ripe banana, voice deep like a village drum. He drove a black automobile that homied like a glad lion. His garments were neat, his smile changed into calm. His fingers gave the impression of they'd never carried pain. Kojo changed into not like Ojuma, now not like a, no longer like Uchai. He turned into exclusive. He asked her, "What do you do?" She smiled and lied. "I am a graduate. I studied business management." He smiled back. "You are simply the form of lady I have been praying for." She laughed gently, but deep internal, her chest, her heart whispered, "Do not lie once more." She disregarded it. They started spending time together. He took her to fancy locations, sold her gifts, listened. When she spoke, he didn't rush her. He did not touch her. Without asking, Kojo had class, Kojo had peace. And for the primary time, Nnkechi felt like perhaps, just perhaps, she should breathe again. She concealed the whole lot, no point out of Ojuma, no whisper of Emma, or Uchai, no trace of the baby she dropped in the bin. She buried all of it like a seed she never wanted to grow sooner or later. He said, "I want to fulfill your parents." Her coronary heart jumped, however, she stated, "Sure." She took him domestic to Oguta elder. Anao noticed him and his eyes widened. "This one has feel Mama Eel couldn't prevent smiling. My daughter has brought us pleasure again." They prayed, they sang, they danced. And whilst Kojo knelt down and asked, "Will you marry me?" Nnkechi checked out her dad and mom, checked out the person in the front of her, and stated yes. The marriage date turned into pick the cards had been revealed, the dresses were sewn, and for the first time in her existence, Nnkechi regarded within the replicate and said, "Maybe God has forgiven me, maybe this one will closing." She became satisfied, but the past does no longer die, it most effective sleeps. And the day it wakes, it doesn't knock the sky become bright. That morning birds sang, the wind changed into smooth, Nnkechi, or a yellow get dressed, her smile stretched extensive like river water underneath solar. It was the day she would meet Kojo's family. He held her hand as they walked to the residence. "Don't be shy," he stated. "They'll love you." She nodded, but her heart beat rapid like a drum. Caution. A village. The residence was big. The gate became painted gold. The compound turned into neat like church floor on Sunday morning. They knocked. A maid opened the door, then got here Kojo's mother. She stepped into the light, wiping her moist hands on her wrapper. The instant her eyes landed on Nnkechi, she froze, her lips parted, her eyes widened. She stepped again, slowly like she had seen a ghost. "Is it no longer you?" she requested. Nnkechi blinked. "Ma." The lady did not answer her. She grew to become and shouted into the residence, "Davis, come out." A valid came from the hallway, light footsteps. Then a boy appeared. He seemed approximately 10. He wore a blue tea blouse and brown shorts. His eyes have been massive. His nostril became sharp, his lips tender like hers. And while he stepped into the light, Mickey saw at her face on his. The boy looked at her. Quiet nonetheless, curious. Her knees went vulnerable, her lips trembled, her fingers started out to shake. Kojo checked out his mother, pressured, "Mother, what is this?" But she didn't solution him. She checked out Nnkechi, her voice sharp like a cutlass. "Do you take into account what you probably did 10 years in the past? Do you remember throwing a baby right into a bin like trash?" Nnkechi's breath caught in her throat. Her global turned silent. The ground below her felt like water. She desired to speak, however, her mouth stayed open, and not using a words popping out. She checked out the boy again. He became nevertheless staring, nonetheless silent. However, deep internal her something cracked. And she, or he knew she were located. The room turned into quiet, too quiet. Kojo's mother stood tall, her eyes burning holes into Nnkechi's pores and skin. She pointed once more. "Do you don't forget the infant within the bin?" Nnkechi's legs failed her. She dropped to her knees like a sack of yam hitting the floor. Her hands trembled, her mouth opened, however no words came at the Start then, her voice cracked like vintage wood. Sure, she whispered. Yes, it was me. Her eyes flooded, her chest rose and fell like irritated waves. I was young, I used to be scared, I had no one I did not understand he could live on, I did not assume. She broke off sobbing. Kojo took a step back, his face became pale. The boy Davis stood by the door, nonetheless quiet, nonetheless staring. Then it poured, the whole thing. She informed them, approximately Ojuma, about walking away, about the lies, about the abortions, about the night time she walked across. City opened that bin and dropped her toddler internal like he changed into not anything. I thought no one saw me, she stated. I idea it was over. Kot's eyes had been white, his lips failed to flow. His mother crossed her arms, her voice was company. You can't marry my son. You are not the type of lady we need in our circle of relatives. Nnkechi cried, more difficult, please. I be given, I recognize, I am no longer worthy, but permit me have my toddler. Back, let me maintain him, let him name me Mama. Just as soon as the female shook her head slowly, no, she looked at the boy. He is mine. I raised him. I fed him. I cleaned his tears. He calls me Mommy. You misplaced that proper 10 years ago. However, I gave delivery to him. Nnkechi whispered, her voice shaking. Like a moist leaf in the wind, and also you threw him away. The female said sharply, you probably did now not lose him, you threw him. Silence fell once more. Kojo grew to become round and walked out of the room. The boy observed him, the door closed. And Nnkechi, nevertheless, on her knees, turned into left by myself. With her tears, everything she buried had again. And it had taken the whole thing with it. Her mother and father had come. They have been sitting quietly in a corner while the entirety spilled. They heard every word. Elder Anna sat like stone, his Bible rested on his lap. But his arms did not move, his face changed into dry, but his eyes have been empty. Mama Ibra was weeping. Not smooth tears, heavy ones, the type that come from a damaged soul. My only daughter, she cried, my only daughter. Nnkechi turned to them, her lips shook. Mama, Papa, I'm sorry. Elder Aneo did not study her. He became his face to the wall, his jaw became tight. You lied to us, he said slowly. You lied for years. She crawled on her knees towards him. Please, I used to be scared. I didn't want to deliver disgrace. You have delivered it now, he said sharply, then got here the words that broke her spirit. Do not come domestic once more. Nnkechi iced up, Papa. He stood up. We raised you with the word of God. We gave you the whole thing we had. And also you repaid us with lies. Mama reached for him. Please, she's still our toddler. However, Elder Anne raised his hand. Now not anymore. He walked out of the house. Mama Eber knelt beside Nnkechi and held her for a second. You ought to have instructed me, she whispered. You should have informed me the whole thing. Nnkechi could not speak. Mama Eber kissed her forehead, then stood up and followed her husband that night. The streets have been quiet. The wind blew dirt into her eyes. Her wrapper flapped against her legs. Nnkechi walked, and not using a route, no husband, no son, no father's domestic to run to the street lights, blinked. The sky turned into black. Her shadow accompanied her, lengthy and lonely. And for the first time in her life, she had no person after the whole lot changed into long gone. Nnkechi broke then. She bent then slowly like a seed inside the dark. She began to change from that day on. Nnkechi gave her life to God truly. She joined a neighborhood church. Not as a member, however, as a servant. She cleaned the compound, arranged the chairs, and wiped the flooring. She fasted regularly and prayed for mercy. She got here early, she stayed late. She washed toilets, carried chairs, swept the altar. She fasted until her lips became pale. She prayed till her knees became darkish like charcoal. Every time the pastor stated mercy, her eyes would close tight, her arms could upward thrust. People pointed at her. Is that no longer the lady who dumped a child? Look at her, holy, holy. After sinning, she heard it all. However, she failed to communicate back. She just cried and served. She did not recognize if she could ever discover peace once more. But she made up her thoughts. If she had nothing else, she would use the relaxation of her life to her searching for God's forgiveness. Ethical lesson: you may run from humans, but not out of your past. Alternatives have outcomes, and the fact always finds its manner returned. However, even in disgrace, there may be nevertheless a street to mercy. If the heart clearly turns to God. I hope you loved the tale. If so, please, just like the video, comment what you found out from the story, and keep in mind to enroll in the channel for extra captivating tales similar to this one. Thank you.